Welcome to the Backyard Professor Responds videos. I'm going to do an intermediate video from last Sunday night's live on the Backyard Professor Responds to the Philip Jenkins debate with Bill Hamblin on Nahom. And I'm exploring that argument as well as various evidences that the apologists claim Nahom is a direct archaeological bullseye. I myself, as an apologist, as I showed 15 years ago, also thought it was a bullseye. It is not a bullseye, but I have discovered what an actual real archaeological bullseye looks like, and that's what I want to share tonight, because tonight's Juneteenth, Wednesday, because if I put this on my Sunday live, I mean, the thing would go into like 4 hours. And so I will link my first discussion on the #1 archaeological proof of the Book of Mormon to this video. And then I will link these two videos to my Sunday night live next week, where I continue on into the real meat of that argument between Philip Jenkins and Bill Hamblin on Nahom and archaeology in the Book of Mormon in general. And as the other junior tier apologists jumped against Dr. Jenkins, he just swatted them away like flies. He just absolutely, he manhandled them. He absolutely decimated them. So this is a valuable lesson because it has the trappings of looking like an archaeological bullseye. Nahom is not even in the same class as what real archaeological bullseyes look like. A picture is worth 1,000 words. Well, a video of a direct archaeological bullseye is priceless. And that's what I want to show you here tonight as an absolute perfect contrast between what a bullseye looks like and what coincidence or else wishful thinking or a reasoned, a biased, motivated, reasoned argument is in order to try to put the Book of Mormon on an actual archaeological level. It is not. There is still not one item found that validates the Book of Mormon archaeologically as having any kind of reality. The bullseye I show you here tonight is the exact opposite. So let's see what happens when we see what archaeological bullseyes really look like.
How archaeology confirms the reliability of the Bible, then the site of Nineveh.
And I would agree with that. Let's see what he's got, because what this biblical archaeology shows is utterly sensational. I will leave the link to this video. This is the Expedition Bible, gentlemen. I will leave the link in the description of this video.
And the people heard Jonah's preaching. They repented, and the Lord relented and did not destroy the city, which allowed Nineveh to continue in history until later it became the capital of the Assyrian Empire.
So he's just giving you the background of Nineveh because that plays a major part in this archaeology that we're going to be looking at.
Ruins across the Tigris River from Mosul to be those of Nineveh. However, by the mid-1800s, this had been brought into question because a few other scholars were identifying other sites as Nineveh. And so in order to establish these ruins as Nineveh, then evidence was going to have to be found. And to do this, the site was going to have to be excavated.
And that is the first proper step to archaeology.
Here, on the southwest corner of the mound, Laird struck a vertical shaft, and at a depth of about 20 feet, his dig team hit a row of fired bricks. After some more clearing, it soon became evident that the wall belonged to a monumental building, and over the next several weeks, the largest palace ever excavated began to be unearthed.
So this was a huge thing for Laird to discover. He wanted to figure out, what in Sam Hill have I discovered? Let's keep watching.
Side of the mud brick walls of the palace were slabs of gypsum, where elaborate scenes of hunting, military campaigns, and other glorious accomplishments of the king were carved into the stone.
So this is big stuff that Layard discovered, and he kept sending, when he found these slabs, he would send them off to the museum there in Europe, where he was from, and it'll blow your mind what an actual archaeological bullseye looks like as we proceed.
The crew were uncovering this huge palace. They found its central courtyard, and they dug to the front of the courtyard, where they unearthed these two huge human-headed winged bulls that were side by side. And as they uncovered them, they realized that they were guarding the entrance to something that further excavation showed was a monumental hallway. As Layard excavated, he prepared a top plan of the palace he was uncovering. So I have the plans, his drawings here, and then what I try to do is I try to match up his plan with the site itself and understand where I am. These are the ruins of the palace Layard excavated, and this is Layard's top plan. These three arrows show the three passages at the front of the central court, and here they are in the ruins. The most monumental of these three passages was the one in the middle.
We begin to see what a direct connection actually looks like. That's not what they have in Nahom. In Nahom, they have a general geographic area, possibly potentially several hundred square miles in size, if not several thousand. Here, we have a pinpoint specified palace in a city in a perfect time for this archaeological material to be a bullseye. It will take your breath away.
We're walking right through this gap right here on his plan as we walk through here. You can follow me. When Layard began excavating the entrance to this central passage, his team found two human-headed winged bulls on either side of it. This proved to be just the beginning of a monumental hallway that led from the palace's central courtyard to its most important showroom.
So that's where those winged, human-headed bulls came from, was Layard's palace he discovered in Nineveh. Interesting.
Another gap and a long hall going off of this main courtyard here. And at the end of that was the main showroom for the whole palace.
And then the advertisement popped up. Oh, drats. He's showing you the AI created art of the palace, which is really kind of a cool touch for this. I have several slides. This program will only let me have 10 slides. So here in a moment, I'm going to have to get rid of these slides and bring on others. So just bear with me. We are now getting to the really good stuff.
This room at the end of the hall were lined with stone reliefs depicting the siege of a single city. The question Layard wanted to know was, what important city was this, and to which Assyrian king did the palace he was excavating belong? The original stone reliefs from this room are on display in the British Museum in London.
That's right, the British Museum in London. That is where it's at, and we will see some of them today.
Showroom Layard discovered. On the wall to the right of the showroom's entrance was a stone relief showing an Assyrian king sitting on a throne on top of a hill, watching the battle for the city. Above and to the left of the enthroned king was a short cuneiform inscription that solved the mystery.
All right, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of these slides real quick, and I will bring others on. So we are setting up the issue that an archaeologist has discovered a palace in a city, and he wants to know, what in tarnation have I discovered? Because this place is gigantic, and it really is. So the next video file I will have is this one. Let's play this one.
Cuneiform was being advanced by scholars, Layard was able to include the translation of the inscription in his book about his excavations, which he published in 1853. It read, Sennacherib, the mighty king, king of the country of Assyria, sitting on the throne of judgment before the city of Lachish. I give permission for its slaughter. So keep in mind that, yes, they found the name Sennacherib engraved in stone, but this would have been meaningless except for the fact that Sennacherib is found in the Bible as the name of the Assyrian king whose capital is Nineveh.
Direct connection. Not sort of a kind of a pattern that seems to fit here and there in some respects. That's a direct connection, folks. Let's go to the next one.
Whose capital is Nineveh. 2 Kings 19:36 says, Sennacherib, king of Assyria, returned to Nineveh and stayed there. So now it was known with certainty, with the finding and translation of this inscription and other inscriptions found in this excavation, it was known with certainty that the ruins across the Tigris River from Mosul, this was Nineveh. And the building that Layard was excavating was the palace of Sennacherib, and that this main showroom that off of the main courtyard was pointing to like a telescope was depicting the city of Lachish, the second most important city in the kingdom of Judah. And this was surprising because they were expecting it to be a much more important city, like the most important city of a nation, the most important city of an important nation. The most important city of the kingdom of Judah is the capital of Judah, which is Jerusalem. So why in this main showroom is it Lachish, the second most important city in the kingdom of Judah?
And here's where archaeology spectacularly solves such an exquisitely weird problem based on what we know of the ancient Near East and the ancient customs and cultures and warfare patterns and practices of many of these ancient nations. This is weird. And the answer is absolutely spectacularly shown through archaeology. It doesn't get better than this. This is as good as you can get. And we've got a little bit more to show you.
Yeah. The inscription on the Taylor prism could now also be read, and was an inscription of none other than Sennacherib himself. On it, Sennacherib says, As to Hezekiah the Jew, he did not submit to my yoke. I laid siege to 46 of his strong cities, walled forts, and to the countless small villages in their vicinity, and conquered them. Notice that Hezekiah, the king of Judah in the Bible, is named by Sennacherib. This event is also recorded in the Bible. Isaiah chapter 36 says, In the 14th year of King Hezekiah's reign, Sennacherib, king of Assyria, attacked all the fortified cities of Judah and captured them.
Now, we don't have anything like that at Nahom. We have some burial stela that I will show you at the end of this presentation today that Neil Rapalai from Farms, he gave a, not Farms, from Fair, he gave a Fair conference in 2022 where he finds some, quote, archaeological evidence for the Book of Mormon, but we don't have any outside sources from the Book of Mormon yet saying and specifically identifying personalities in the Book of Mormon. Nahom is in a completely different class altogether. This is the real archaeology, and let's keep going because we're not done yet.
Sennacherib's palace in Nineveh. Visible at the very end of the long monumental hall was the stone relief at the center of the back wall of the showroom, and carved on it was the siege ramp at Lachish.
He said he was fighting against Lachish. His artifact, his wall picture, shows the ramp that he used to besiege Lachish. Watch how archaeology demonstrates this secular history tied with the biblical history in an absolutely perfect proof, something Nahom doesn't even come close to. It's not even in the same area of discourse.
This is a stone picture of the siege of Lachish. And so you can see all these Assyrians coming up the siege ramp on either side here. You can see the huge war machines with the battering rams. So in 2 Chronicles 32:9, it says that while Sennacherib, king of Assyria, and his forces are laying siege to Lachish, that he sends his officers up to Jerusalem to deliver a message to Hezekiah and the people there. So we have the Bible and the Assyrian records coming together in this event. This is the dramatic event between the Assyrian records and the Israelite records in the Bible.
Exact, specific, and directly to the point. This is what an archaeological bullseye looks like. But we're not done yet. There is more. Truly. And it's impressive.
This is Tel Lachish, the mound of ruins of the city the Assyrians attacked in 701 BC. Since the Bible says that Sennacherib laid siege to Lachish, and since the stone reliefs from Sennacherib's palace show us a stone carving of the Assyrian siege ramp at Lachish, then it should not come as a surprise that in 1973 at Lachish, the Assyrian siege ramp was discovered and excavated.
Every little detail of this story in the Bible and in Sennacherib's annals of records and in the archaeological digs fit. It's as close to proof as we will ever get of how archaeology verifies reality. Let's keep going.
This is the Assyrian siege ramp on the Lachish reliefs, and outlined here is the Assyrian siege ramp being excavated at Tel Lachish.
Many, many details perfectly align with this archaeological discovery and the records.
What you're looking at here is the exposed inner core of the pile of stones of the Assyrian siege ramp. Extending from ground level to the city wall of Lachish. Beyond this wall are the excavation squares that explored the inside of the city opposite the siege ramp.
Okay, so there it is in real life, not just on a rock carving. and not just being written about, but we can actually go to the exact spot, to the exact inch, and find the records, verify the physical reality. This is what an archaeological bullseye looks like, you guys.
So this is the outer city wall of Lachish. This is where this massive siege ramp comes up to. This is the specific area on the ground that is being depicted in the stone pictures that we have from Sennacherib's palace in Nineveh. This is where the people above are fighting for their lives, for their very existence, and where the Assyrians with their huge siege engines are assaulting this wall. Archaeologically, all the things that you see depicted in the stone reliefs that are being thrown down from the walls, the arrowheads, the sling stones, all that was found by the masses in this particular area. So behind me here, where you see the houses, that's where the Assyrians set up camp. And I mean,
no guesswork. The entire archaeological picture, the entire linguistic and records that were kept in the Bible and outside the Bible in secular history is part of that context, and the actual discovery of both places mentioned in both records, Nineveh, Judah, Sennacherib, Hezekiah. War, a war ramp, they're besieged. That's an archaeological bullseye. We're not quite done yet. We do have more. I've got to remove a few of these. And let me get rid of a few of these. We are closing in, and then we will see the dramatic contrast with Nahom, which has none of this. There's no maybes. There's no possiblies. There's no, well, this could have been that, based on patterns that we see linguistically or archaeologically, you know, with the potsherds or whatever, or with the remains of ruins, etc. It could potentially be. There's a possibility. There's absolutely none of that. There is direct archaeological confirmation and explicit connection. This is what an archaeological bullseye looks like. And Nahom doesn't have this. Nothing in Nahom has this. So let's keep going.
and so they must have felt an incredible amount of doom hanging over them as they watched the Assyrians set up camp. We know from the reliefs that Sennacherib would take his position on this hill over here and watch the show. And the show was right here where they were building the siege ramp. And so these Assyrian soldiers would come and throw these rocks one at a time until estimated 19,000 tons of rocks were piled up to the base of the city wall. And the people were fighting for their very existence, but they were no match for the Assyrians. The Assyrians did what they always did. They breached the city wall, burned the city, killed a bunch of the people, and sent the rest of them into exile.
This is what an all-inclusive, complete total archaeological bullseye with all of the details look like, you guys.
A mass grave had been discovered that contained the remains of over 1,500 people who had been killed in the conflict. After capturing Lachish, the Assyrian army burned the entire city.
No detail in physical reality is left out or is guessed about. None. It's all explicitly exact and described, and we find it. That's a bullseye. One more, I do believe. Oh, I've got a couple more. Let's keep going.
After the fall of Lachish, the only fortified city that is left in the kingdom of Judah is the capital, Jerusalem, and the Assyrians lay siege to it. In his inscription, Sennacherib says, Hezekiah, I made a prisoner in Jerusalem, like a bird in a cage. Now, if the Assyrians capture Jerusalem, then that means God has broken his promise that from these people is going to come in the future the Messiah. And so God can't allow Jerusalem to be destroyed, so he delivers Jerusalem through a mighty miracle. 2 Kings chapter 19 says, that night the angel of the Lord went out and put to death 185,000 in the Assyrian camp. When the people got up the next morning, there were all the dead bodies. So Sennacherib, king of Assyria, broke camp and withdrew. He returned to Nineveh and stayed there.
Fascinating. And there is still some discussion on just what did happen to Sennacherib's army. One idea is mice with the plague. Another idea, I believe, is from Herodotus, said the mice chewed all the bowstrings of the Assyrians, so they were weaponless. Who knows? But the point is, the siege did not get accomplished. And we have that in the archaeology evidence as well. Interestingly enough, let's take a look. Uh-oh.
So in Sennacherib's inscription, he is listing out, boasting about his great accomplishments. And one of these is that he lays siege to Jerusalem, but he never mentions that he captures Jerusalem.
Now, Sennacherib is bragging about all the cities that he destroyed, and the city that he puts in the most predominant place in his palace is the city of Lachish. There's no question that what the city he wanted to put there to brag about was Jerusalem. But he doesn't have Jerusalem in his main showroom. Why? Because according to his own records, according to the Bible, he never captured Jerusalem. And so he has the second most important city in Judah there instead.
Every I dotted, every T crossed. One last one, and then we'll show a very interesting contrast.
So essentially what was discovered in Nineveh were the Assyrian records. And so now the Assyrian records could be compared with the Israelite records in the Bible. And especially in this shared event between these two records, which was the Assyrian conquest of Judah. And we find that the two agree. They're from two radically different perspectives, but they agree in the details and the events of what happened and who was in charge of them. And so we have the same kings named in both records. We have also the details of the events themselves, of what happened, what was taken, what wasn't taken. I can't think of a site where everything comes together, the archaeology, the biblical record, the extra-biblical record, to demonstrate that the Bible is talking about real people, real places, real events, real destructions, and real deliverances. And this is good news because
this is how the Mormon apologists cannot talk about Nahom, Bountiful, and the trip of Lehi through the Arabian desert. And I'll give you a perfect example from none other than Neil Rappleye himself in his 2022 fair presentation, where he has shown numerous inscriptions of the Nahom word, and he doesn't really share that it could mean stonecutter. He's more interested, of course, in the Nahom person. And he also has found some funerary stela that they used to carve a crude face on and then describe the person. And he has found one of these stela with the name Ishmael on it. But compare the vast difference in tone and words between what this gentleman just said and what we hear about Nahom. I can't show this any more graphically than letting the people themselves say it.
They are the exact equivalent names. They both mean the same thing. May God hear, or God has heard, or something along those lines. And it's the exact equivalent in South Arabian script. Now, I do want to be clear about something. I am not claiming that this is the Ishmael from the Book of Mormon. I have absolutely no idea how we would ever be able to definitively prove that. And I'm not even willing to say it's likely him. But I do think it's possible. And I think it's even a very tantalizing possibility, if you think about it. But I do stress it's just a possibility. But what we can say here is that this stela does confirm that someone with the name Ishmael, or its South Arabian equivalent, was buried near the Nahom region in 600 BC.
He can't actually say it's Ishmael, so this can't actually confirm Ishmael was real in the Book of Mormon. He has no verification for Lehi, Sariah, Nephi, Laman, Lemuel, Sam, Ishmael, or any of those people at all, anywhere as the Book of Mormon personalities leaving their homeland from Jerusalem, finally getting to the Red Sea, making a ship and crossing the ocean to a different country, a different continent halfway around the world. There is literally not one inscription. There is not one archaeological discovery, whether it's inscriptional, whether it's pottery, whether it's a wall carving relief, whether it's a carved stone. It does not matter. There is absolutely nothing to verify the actual characters in the Book of Mormon. And this is why the apologists go to pattern. It's a tantalizing possibility. Hezekiah, king of Judah, is not a tantalizing possibility. He really lived. He really was a king of Judah. We have an archaeological bullseye proving that. I would say that to an atheist. I would say that to a Jew, a Mormon, a Christian, a Muslim. It doesn't matter. That is evidence of proof that that particular story about Sennacherib from Assyria, who also was a very real king and obviously really powerful in 701, he trounced the entire country of Judah. That has been verified archaeologically, everything except for Jerusalem. But they both name each other, Sennacherib and Hezekiah. They both had the same station in life. One was a prophet, one was a king. They had military power. Assyria had the greater power, of course. They both had fortified cities. They had men, women, and children, etc. And Judah never won against the Assyrians. And perhaps a miracle did spare Jerusalem. Who knows if it was a miracle or not? But from the Judah side of things, that was a miracle. But we have all of the particulars instead of the including the actual archaeological remains of Lachish, the city that was shown on Sennacherib's stone-carved wall. We can even do that to the exact spot, to within an inch. They have nothing like that for Nahom or Bountiful. It's all generality. It's very impressionistic. You have to deal with parallels because you don't have the concrete connection. In a biblical archaeology bullseye, you do have concrete connections. Let me re-show that last clip of the biblical archaeology bullseye. It is exquisitely powerful.
So essentially what was discovered in Nineveh were the Assyrian records. And so now the Assyrian records could be compared with the Israelite records in the Bible. and especially in this shared event between these two records, which was the Assyrian conquest of Judah. And we find that the two agree. They're from two radically different perspectives, but they agree in the details and the events of what happened and who was in charge of them. And so we have the same kings named in both records. We have also the details of the events themselves, of what happened, what was taken, what wasn't taken. I can't think of a site where everything comes together, the archaeology, the biblical record, the extra biblical record, to demonstrate that the Bible is talking about real people, real places, real events, real destructions, and real deliverances. And this is good news, because
this is what the apologists wish Nahom and Bountiful and Shazer gave them, but it does not. There is no bullseye there. There is a direct biblical archaeology bullseye with King Hezekiah. We know that that's real because of the archaeology, because of the sacred record, the Bible, and because of the secular record, Sennacherib's writings himself. Nothing like that has been discovered of Lehi, of Nephi, of Alma, of Mosiah, of Benjamin, of Jerem. None of them, any of them, have ever been demonstrated real from their secular writings discovered in, I should say, from their writings from an outside the Book of Mormon source, either in Mesoamerica or the heartland in North America either. Nothing like this. The two situations are completely different, and Nahom doesn't even enter the arena of archaeological bullseye. And so I think this contrast has been very instructive. Now, this Sunday, here in just a few days, today's Wednesday, I will present and finish up my discussion on Nahom using the discussion of Philip Jenkins and Bill Hamblin and Neil Rapoli. He got in there, and Steve Smoot jumped in, so did John Gee and several other apologists. Dan Peterson himself even made a note about it, but Phil Jenkins did not lose that debate because he was correct. And this biblical archaeology bullseye actually shows why Phil Jenkins was correct. Now, that was in 2015. And it's 2024. We are 9 years down the road, and nothing has changed in the Book of Mormon. Now, this gentleman who shared this Nineveh, Sennacherib, he's written a book about it. It is a peer-reviewed book, and he's gotten it published from a scholarly press, I believe. I don't have his book. I confess I have not read it. I've just seen his video. I will be buying his book, though. But the apologists don't have anything like this. They really don't. They never try to academically present their materials to the academy. And we can now see why. They're still in the tentative stage. They're still looking for that one item. They give the impression that they're close. They are not. Not even close to the caliber of an archaeological bullseye that this Nineveh situation is. Fabulous stuff. I will leave a link to this gentleman's video below in the description, as well as to Neil Rapoli's fair presentation. And I just picked and chose out of both of them. If you really want to see the pure power and dynamic contrast, the difference is night and day between these two pieces of information, then watch both of those videos in succession. Watch the biblical archaeology. It's only like a half an hour. Now, Neil's is about an hour and a half presentation because he goes off into all kinds of interesting stuff. They're trying awful hard, but they have nothing yet. But that is actual evidence for me that Nahom is not a bullseye. And from now on, when Nahom is presented to me as a bullseye, I would advise all the listeners and viewers of this video, present this Nineveh item. Present Sennacherib's invasion, the Assyrian invasion against Hezekiah, as what an archaeology bullseye really does look like. And that's why we know. We don't hope. We don't guess, well, maybe there's something we're missing. No, we know. Just as surely as we know Hezekiah really did live, and so did Sennacherib, and that Sennacherib trounced Judah and destroyed Lachish, we know there are no archaeological bullseyes with Nahom or anywhere else in the Book of Mormon. Not yet. Something could show up. See, the apologist stance is, well, you have to have faith. No, we do not. We have to go with the evidence. If the evidence doesn't direct us to reality of the peoples in the Book of Mormon, then we are entirely justified in saying, no, we do not agree that they were real. When you can present evidence of such a stature as Sennacherib and King Hezekiah for anything in the Book of Mormon, and you can speak the way this gentleman spoke about your evidence, when you can say, oh, absolutely, we do know that's Lehi, we know that's Ishmael, we know that is Alma, when you can speak that and the rest of the world can agree with you because the archaeology is so strong, then you have a bullseye. Interestingly, I have looked at 13 different YouTube channels on this Sennacherib Assyrian invasion, and there is even more archaeological evidence for Hezekiah than this gentleman led on to believe. They have found the seal of Hezekiah, and there's several of them. In the process, remarkably, now Isaiah was Hezekiah's court prophet, for lack of a better type of a description of Isaiah and Hezekiah's relationship. But they think they have found a seal of Isaiah the prophet. Very interesting. Again, extra evidence for their reality. We also now know about Hezekiah's tunnel in Jerusalem, why he built it, etc. We do know he lived and commissioned and built that tunnel as well. So from a multiple group of sources from all types of different angles and times and archaeological digs, we know Hezekiah lived. We know what he did and didn't do. We know who his friends and his enemies were, etc. There's nothing vague and potentially possible maybe with this issue. That's what an archaeological bullseye looks like. That's why it will always be my response to the Nahom issue from here on out. So I'm looking forward to seeing you guys Sunday night, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, where I wrap up, and it's going to be a long one. It's going to be a full blizzard of evidence against the apologetic methodology they use to refute critics like Philip Jenkins. Jenkins absolutely manhandles them in one of the most masterful refutations I have ever read. I'm really looking forward to presenting it, and I'm looking very forward to seeing you all there. So have a good evening, and I will be back.